Can you need some caffeine?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Our governance and priorities meeting for Tuesday, April 26, 2022. It is 5:28. We've got everybody we need here, and we got a pop-up on the stupid screen here now. I'll begin by calling the meeting to order, and I'll be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have any additions?
No,
Nothing?
for sure.
Okay. Councillor Williams had his hand up a second ago, so I'll go
I was just going to make a motion that council adopts the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williams. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. That brings us to draft seniors tax rebate policy item 3.1. Bill?
Good evening, Reeve and Council. So what we have in front of us is a seniors property tax rebate policy. The Community Services Board had done kind of a planning session, and this is one of the ideas that came out of it. And then at our March 10th meeting, we had presented a report to the board, providing various policies and programs that other municipalities have got out there, as well as the Alberta Government Senior Property Tax Deferral Program. And it was moved at that meeting by Reeve Burrows that we forward a draft policy to council on the seniors tax rebate. So we've drafted one up. I've had our corporate services department look at it as well. And the primary comment from their department was just for simplicity, would be to make it a flat rate versus working with the percentage increase. So it's been written around that philosophy. Administration's recommending for starters, kind of a flat rate be established at a rate of $150 per year for low-income seniors. We tried to find programs similar so we could kind of see what usage might come out of the program. It looks like the seniors transportation grant was probably the closest we could use. That is a very heavily used program, and we usually have about 200 seniors per year that utilize that. Highly unlikely, though, that this program would see that kind of usage. But if we base for budget purposes, based on 200 seniors making application, at $150, we're looking at $30,000 a year that would have to be placed in the budget. So it's going to be a test for the first year, if council's in favor of looking at such a program.
Any questions to administration? Go ahead.
So we don't have any kind of rebate plan in place or anything similar to this right now, just the transportation rebate?
Correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Dean.
Thank you. So to Joan, so the intent is that if council was to pass this, that it would be in effect for this tax year?
Through the Reeve to Councillor Dean, it would be for 2023,
Okay.
just because we don't have funds in the budget for 2022.
Right. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. So we have a little time. We don't have to necessarily run this through tonight.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions on this? So I have two. Within the what are we determining as the number for the income cutoff on this?
It's based on, Your Worship, it is based on the income tax. So they have to provide us with, it would be, for next year, it would be this year's income tax forms, their final assessment. They would need to provide that with us. And it's the lowest threshold for seniors that can, I guess, put forward. We have an example here for for 2022, for example. A single income for a senior of $29,285 a year.
Yep.
And then combined income So you've got a husband and wife combination, 47,545. So those would be the thresholds. And of course, that changes each year as well, so we'd have to be cognizant of what the lower rates are for each year.
And the second question would be, is the flat fee indexed at all to any increases automatically or?
Your worship, no. What we did is we took an example of five seniors, kind of, I just threw some names at our taxation clerk, and it fluctuates so much because depending upon the assessment and whatever the mill rate be or whether it be a tax increase, what we kind of seen through the analysis of the 5 properties was that in some years they actually decrease, other years they do increase, but of the 5 that we did, none of them were an increase over that 150. So that's why we, like the minimum, I think it was actually a minus, and then the maximum was about $140 some.
Okay.
So kind of to make it fair across the board to everybody, we just chose a lump sum. Some of the other municipalities, I think the lowest is $100 that they give, and the most that we found was a $500 rebate.
My calculator.
So if council wished, we could alter that number.
Any other questions for the men on this? Do we like this idea?
I just have a couple comments, and it actually came up at the zone meeting yesterday that you could, if council wants to combine all their senior programs, whether it's the medical transportation one or the snowplow flags, as well as this proposed one, is to have a spending account that they can apply it to any of the programs that you have, and once their credit is used up, then that would be it for the year. And again, could suggest that it could be carried over for 2 years, right? You can tailor any way you want this program, right? It all depends. And the last thing I just want to make a note. Back in 1994, the government of Alberta had a senior rebate, and at that time it was $250 per senior for them. So just to give you some, so there has been programs throughout the year.
Okay. Any direction? Councillor Dean?
I'm in favor of offering a rebate to the seniors. I think all too often our seniors kind of get left behind in planning and recognition of what they've done for our communities over the years. Sometimes is overlooked as well. So I think a program like this helps to remind all of us that they came before us and they laid the foundation for us. So I'm in favor of this.
Okay. Councillor Cookin?
I guess being a senior. Just wondering whether I should comment on this or not. No, I think that it's a good program, and I think it's exactly like Mr. Dean says. I think it is something that we should consider. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We should just ask through to the CAO whether or not we have a pecuniary interest.
No, because it's a general program and nothing's implemented, and everybody benefits from it that are.
Okay.
Yeah, you can vote on it if it's affecting everyone. This would be like a voting on the mill rate.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah. The other thing, and Councillor Culkin brings up the point about being a senior, nothing stops council again from looking at the policy and saying that the seniors discount could be at the age of 60, because I received my first one the other day. So, at the age of 60.
And I don't know if we had a discussion around the one thing that you had brought up, which is the, kind of the total seniors rebate availability, much like a health spending plan. So if there's a, couple $500 in that account for them, they could use it for snowplow flags, they could use it for a rebate on their taxes, they could use it for whatever it is that they need. And that might bring a few other things together. I don't know, we hadn't really thought of it quite that way before, so. Councilor Williams.
I actually like how that, whatever you want to call it, senior spending account, however your credit or whatever. I don't think that's a really bad idea because some don't use any snowplow flags, but they'd probably love to use it other ways or something. I don't know. I don't know what that would look like exactly, but I don't mind the idea of that. I'm in favor of this. Just subsidizing them somehow, I'm in favor of. So if that's the way we can look at it, I think it'd be good.
Councilor Prestige.
I like that kind of saving account, but what kind of burden is that gonna put on administration to administrate that kind of program?
I'll speak and then Alicia will. I think the first year would be a trial to understand who's first of all eligible, right? And we do have a database through our Transportation Seniors Grant of certain individuals, right? And the criteria surrounding that. So it's just a matter of how they would apply that, and then anybody new coming into the community that meets that eligibility criteria. So again, once you apply it, it'd be a matter of setting it up somehow, whether it's a ledger through an Excel. It's a good question, right?
Is that your ECG?
Senior thing is
Still breathing, that's good.
I've never heard them make that noise.
It's froze up a couple times on us.
Okay, so where, Councilor Dean?
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that everybody's basically in favor of not only this program, but all that basket of programs for our seniors. So the recommended action is to forward this to council for approval. And I think rather than forwarding this to approval, what I'd suggest is that council direct administration to come back with an overview of that basket, if you will, of the spending account for our review.
So all of our seniors programs, basically everything that seniors are eligible for,
Yeah.
and have a look at how that ties together with this program.
Yeah.
Okay. And bring it back to the governance and priorities meeting next one?
Sure.
Yeah, and the only reason I say question of whether or not the next governance, there may be some further research that we want to do to see how we would set it up and the whole bit. And I'm just, the logistics of it, and that may take a little bit of time versus a month.
Go ahead, Councilor Dean.
Sure. So we could just, the motion could read to a future governance priority. So I'd recommend that council direct administration to come up with a senior spending account that takes into account all our seniors programs and bring that to council at a future governance and priorities meeting.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, carried. I think we're on to something there. Item 3.2, so this is a request for funding for the Woodlands Express. Just gonna take us through this one.
I will read Burrow's. So annually, we receive information from the Woodlands Express. They receive a grant, if you will, for lack of better terms, from Woodlands County for operating their newspaper, and they are always able to provide us a financial statement showing their current expenditures for the year as well as their cash on hand, which we very much appreciate. This item is before you here at the Governance and Priorities Committee, firstly because as newly elected officials, some of you haven't seen all of the grants that are given out throughout the different organizations with the community. So we brought it here for initial discussion and looking for further direction if this is something that should be going to council for approval at the next meeting.
Okay. So everybody got the 2021 actual summary there. Any questions on this? Is it good enough? I noticed a couple of spots here, we have it listed as FCSS, so Eagle Tower Victim Services and Fort Assiniboine Moms and Tots, things like that. Now, we have a chunk of FCSS funding that we're looking at kind of changing the framework of that. We hadn't necessarily done a lot of that funding through our municipality. We relied on another one to deal with a lot of the FCSS. So if we're changing that, is there anything in this that can now be funded through FCSS?
So I can tell you the eligible grants here are all allocated to their appropriate. So if it's a recreation grant, it goes through the recreation, or if it's an operating grant for community halls, it's done through that way. So the FCSS grant funding, and Joan will correct me if I'm wrong, is that the community services has individual grant budget available, and they go and seek out grant applications for grant funding. And then it's vetted through the Community Services Board to award those grants.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions? You want to go with the recommended action?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we provide the Woodlands, the request for, let's see, where is this?
If I may, Your Worship, I believe I have the recommended action incorrect. I believe this should be to go to council
Yeah.
for approval. And that would be my error, my apologies.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion to send request for funding to council.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Dean?
Yeah, just the recommended actions talks about reviewing all the grants and funding to groups prior to the 23 budget cycle. Do we want that in the motion? Do we want that a separate motion? Could we offer a friendly amendment to bring that inside?
I think let's do that as a separate motion, just to keep it clear. This is a specific funding request around the Woodlands Express, so we'll deal with that one, and then, but yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. This should come back to have an overview of all of our funding on this. So with that, any other comments on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed?
I forgot to mention that you do have Councillor
I
Cush.
did forget to mention that we have
He
Councillor
keeps putting up
Cush,
his
and
hand.
his hand was up. I
Yeah.
saw that one, yep.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Cush, I forgot to acknowledge that you're online and. Okay, with that, Councillor Dean, did you want to make that second motion?
Sure, I'd make a motion that we recommend to administration to bring to council a review of all our grants and funding to our groups prior to the 2023 budget cycle.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. That brings us to draft municipal land management policy. And Joan.
This was a bit of a group effort, I'll say. So as we know, we have various lands that are in Woodlands County's control, whether it be couple quarter sections, undeveloped road allowances, lots within the hamlets. But we also have several policies in place that cover different aspects of lands controlled or owned by us. And that includes like licensing of road allowances, leasing of the airport land, sale of county land, sale of roadways, purchase of land for recreation purposes and use of county-owned land for events, that we looked at and have kind of incorporated it into all one policy, easier to locate and find. However, it wasn't, the policies that exist weren't all encompassing, so tried to look at kind of every aspect that may occur. And council had requested this as a result of a few different requests that came forward to council. One was around the leasing at of the agricultural land at the airport. That was the first kind of flag in which we didn't have a policy in place around leasing agriculture or land for agricultural purpose. The second request was, I think, in the fall of 2021, in which a private landowner was requesting the county to consider purchasing their land due to sloughing of the bank on their property and it causing issue with the residents. So some environmental constraints. And I guess the third was a presentation by a landowner who doesn't necessarily have physical access to the parcel, but they have legal access. So in other words, there's undeveloped road allowances that do lead to the property. So the draft policy provides pretty much everything from sale, lease, licensing, and provides direction on purchase of lands to be included in our municipal inventory. And as a result, if council does consider this policy, we'd have several of those existing policies that I mentioned, and there's a list here that would essentially be able to be repealed because they will be included in this particular document. Andre did give me a few friendly amendments, kind of after I'd already provided it for presentation to council, and they're minor things. So where I've got specifically Director of Infrastructure, and just change it to administration, changed up some words around capital and things like that. But yeah, so I don't know if you want me to run through it as to each section, or if you have had a read and what you think. It's been an undertaking to try and put everything together and trying to think of all the different aspects that kind of come at you.
Any questions? Does administration think that putting all these policies into one place like this is cleaner or more easy for people to understand or easier for administration? My point is you want to make things as easy as possible, and when you're looking at kind of amalgamating a whole bunch of things into one, sometimes it gets messy. So are we creating a problem by doing this?
And like Joan had indicated, is researching and trying to find the appropriate policy, how it relates to it, and depending on how old it is and where it's located, like sometimes that becomes more difficult when you have a separate policy versus an all-encompassing. The con is that all-encompassing, every time you want to make an amendment to one section, you have to bring the entire policy back just because, I don't know, and you go from a 3-year term to a 5-year term. So the policy goes back. So there is pros and cons on both sides. We're not opposed to dividing it and coming back and dealing with agricultural land use policy and public lands policy purchases and road allowances. So it can be done either way.
Any questions? Councillor Wilhelm.
Not necessarily a question, just comments on when you're amalgamating several documents into one large document. I think some thought needs to be put into regards to essentially the indexing of where the information is, and if these new policies, or these super policies, if you wanna call them, put together are documents that are searchable documents, so they're easier. So if you do have like a 35-page policy that encompasses everything, is there a easy way, is it indexed properly so a resident can understand it or find the information they need to have, for one? And for two, for the tech savvy ones, is the document a searchable document as well, so that they can search for specific words that will help them get to the point that they need to be in that document. That type of stuff, when we're reading policy, makes it a lot easier, right? Especially if it's indexed properly, or indexed in a way that makes sense to the average person.
Councilor Dean?
Thanks, Mr. Reeve. I'd like to come back to, that concept that you brought up, when you tie in, reading through there, I can't remember how many there were, but there were six policies, I think. Seven, right,
And a
seven.
couple more.
Oh, yes.
It seems to me that the impetus was that there was a lack of direction on two specific situations. And in my mind, it would make more sense to address those two specific situations. And instead of having 7 policies, we'd have 9 policies. That makes it easier for me to search rather than an omnibus policy that I think would become cumbersome. So I prefer 2 more policies come back for review.
Okay. Anyone else?
I was just gonna echo what they said, is it's quite a read from start to finish of this. When you're looking for one thing, I think it's quite a lot. I don't mind it being split out personally, but I appreciate the work that you guys keep putting into this, though. That's a lot of work. So I hate to say that.
There are, one of the things, if you're looking, council is looking at splitting the policies into individuals, there is some redundancies so for example, definition should be consistent, so there would be some redundancy, but again, it's not like it's an over cumbersome process that we would take us to do, right?
Councilor Wilhelm?
I know the thought was to try to, some of the policies that you're gonna roll in, or you're looking to roll into this, haven't been reviewed, it looks like, in 18 years type thing, so it's a good procedure that we want, you guys are going through them anyways and bring them forward. Is there any way that we could structure, or administration could structure to look at, instead of having one, to use Steela's word, omnibus policy, can you group them so that there's 2 rather than one that encompasses 7? Can you group them better into 2 separate policies? Or I'm only asking, I don't know if that is possible, but you said it is a lot to cover in one document. So it would have to take some creative, either indexing or searchability to the policy.
Through the Reeve to Councillor Willem and Dean, we, it could be split out into probably, I would say, 2 separate ones. One dealing specifically with roads and one dealing specifically with land, per se. That would make it easier. What I found, though, was when I was doing my research is that even though, because they're done by policy number, is going through, and when I was finished, the day that I handed it to these guys, I was like, oh my God, I missed 2. Because there was further down that I didn't even know had existed, that were put in more recently, which one was the purchasing recreation land. That wasn't even on my radar. So that's kind of why we thought putting it all into one, at least you got a one-stop shop versus trying to find it in it's just the way I think our policies are set up and the numbering, because one would fit under infrastructure and the other one would probably fit under, I'm going to say maybe corporate services as far as the land itself goes, or planning and development, either one, but, and where do you put those?
See, I don't think it's a bad idea to actually have this all in one place. I was just asking, them in to make sure that it's not cumbersome for people. And when I read through it, I mean, how many pages is this total policy, about 20?
Yeah.
It's really not that bad. And the fact that, excuse me, the fact that we have several policies that are referenced in here from the 90s gives us an idea that we need to be reviewing these more often. So if one section of this is going to come up, it's going to come before us and we'll get to look at the whole thing. It's also for definition purposes. Trying to keep multiple policies congruent. If there's a definition change in one or the other and there's two references to something, they can get really confusing. So it's not that I don't like this all in one. I actually think that the all-in-one is not bad, and a 20-page policy is not, it's not overly lengthy. So, Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair to administration, I personally like the one policy, as long as it's indexed properly with page numbers and the policy number, so you can look through and find where you wanna be, versus trying to find 2 or 3 different policies, and it's not where you think it's gonna be, it's in another policy where it's under one, you know that's the area it's gonna be. So, I like this.
Okay. Anyone wish to make a motion on this, or?
I'll make that motion.
Which motion do you recommend?
Yeah, the council direct administration to draft policy municipal land management and forward to council for consideration for approval.
Any discussion?
Yeah. So just to Councillor Prestige's point, the, this is gonna come back to council. Council's gonna get a chance to look at it again. And the indexing portion is really important, right? Because that provides there almost needs to be a table of contents that
Exactly.
directs you to the appropriate page, etc. Because when I look at this, and I realize it's a draft, but there really is no table of contents, and so it is difficult for trying to walk in the shoes of a resident who's doing something for the first time, never done it before. I think this draft policy would be cumbersome. So,
So would you accept a friendly amendment with the addition of a table of contents at the lead end, or?
Not that I think the point about redrafting the policy, because we still have to fix up a lot of the technical stuff in the whole bit in regards to the table of contents. There may, and I can't remember the word, there's another, it's almost like a manual procedure that we could include that would help council identify the different sections. So, and the reason why it's coming to mind is Strathcona County does something very similar to this, and I don't know if you reviewed Strathcona's policy. So, I'm just saying, if you put us a table, we're forced to do that policy, there may be other options out there. We hear what council wants, so.
Okay.
I don't think we need to add anything. This council has the direction we want to see.
so
Yeah.
we're gonna look at it again. So.
My question around that comment though is that to help council go through it, or is that to help the individuals understand it?
Website friendly, administration, council, everybody.
Okay.
So,
The reason I'm asking is because when I think from a resident's perspective, I think of this as a 20-page document, and they say, I want to do this. You can print that out, hand it to them, and say, you want that page right there, and that's the
Yes.
one you want. So I
don't
guess I'm
know.
looking at these as kind of standalone pieces of paper, because the residents don't care if we find it easy. They want to find it easy themselves. So that as long as I'm I just wanna make sure that we're doing it for them, not for us, so.
So some of the procedures need to be further defined too as well, right? How do you do, when do you get an application for, to purchase property? What happens, right? You have the policy that says that you can do it, but what's the procedure? Does it go to council first? Does administration research and, you know, do we do a report up and assess it and do a recommendation? It says we purchase it at market value, but, so there is some more work to do in regards to it. Again, my understanding of the governance and priorities meeting is to have that general discussion so it starts to exchange the ideas, and then we can further refine it as we go forth, right?
Okay, so one further question then. When you talk about that, are you saying that this document in policy would reference a procedure around? So there'd be
Potentially,
there'd be
yes.
a companion to this?
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Okay,
I think that this is one of the cases where we would have a procedure on a lot of our, how do you go about doing that, and show the public here's our procedure, right? There are some policies that we don't have procedures that go with them. We just, they're fairly straightforward.
okay. Counselor Wilhelm.
Would that just, would you, because obviously you don't want to make the document even more cumbersome by adding more pages. Would it be like a hyperlink that you click on it and take you to a separate part
Yeah.
of the website? Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So this is really along the ideas that in my trade where I come from in aviation, they have two sets of documents. They have a regulation and they have a standard. The regulation says what you have to do, and then the standard says how do you do it.
How do you do it? Yeah.
So is that kind of what you're talking about?
Legislation is the act, and the regulation is how you go about implementing the act.
Okay, with that, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, and if council wants to surf the internet, Lac La Biche County has policies and procedures where they'll have a number of policies, and then they'll have the procedure underneath that to how they implement that policy, so. So there are a number of municipalities that we take that best practice and then we adjust it to our best practice.
Okay. Sorry, there's still a motion on the floor from Councilor Prestidge. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. I don't know why I keep asking that. Councilor Cush, I didn't see your hand. Did anyone see his hand up?
I didn't see it that time, no. He has Starlink now. He should have the greatest connection ever. He keeps bragging about it.
We actually had that discussion at the zone meeting a little bit.
I don't know, do we, can you try again? Because we have to note it that if he was unavailable.
Councilor, there he is. I see a hand. Thank you, Councilor Cush. Okay, that was all in favor, so that item is passed. And that brings us to our business plan. So this is going to Mr. Frank.
I'll just, do you want one too? It's a bigger one.
There's there's a stapled document and then the colorful sheet below.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. You have it all in your package, but sometimes it's nicer to have it on paper if you want to jot things down or change things in regards to that. I'll quickly go over the business plan as in the financial understanding. Tomorrow, council is considering adopting their strategic plan, and the consultants will be via Zoom, via Teams to present the strategic plan, but based on the 5 priorities that council identified at their strategic planning session, we put together goals that we think that we can achieve. the Gantt chart that is at the back of the document, part of the Excel spreadsheet that we have, gives you roughly the timelines and when that activity will be done. And I guess just quickly who the project lead will be on the goals that we did, the time frame I talked about. Whether there are some financial impacts in regards to that, and some of them have been identified. And then where they align with certain policies, or whether we have to develop new policies, as well as if there's anything else that council may want to have policy developed in that for that particular goal. And then the communication needs, how do you deal with that person's certain goal, whether it's internal, external, some type of media campaign, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are some comments, and those comments will get updated biannually is what we're recommending at this point in time. So this will come to council twice a year and reviewed to see where we're making progress.
Any questions? Councilor Wilhelm?
I always have questions. First off, thank you guys for doing this. This is obviously being done on that Friday of the strategic planning. I read through it the other day. I was really impressed with it. You guys followed the SMART goal template of being quite specific and actually creating timeframes, as opposed to the previous one that we had where there wasn't a whole lot of timeframes that weren't ongoing or to be determined type things. So I really appreciate the work that you guys put into trying to create specific timeframes, because it allows us as council to, see what your goals are and see what your end goals are, but also and evaluate you on reaching those goals. But I think it's more important for you guys that you actually have set timeframes for yourselves for these goals. You're going to be able to judge your success based upon that. So I just wanted to say I appreciate the time and work you guys put into doing this. I look forward to paying attention to it over the next 4 years to see how many of these goals we can reach together.
Anyone else? Dean?
Thank you. Yeah, and I guess my comment is not necessarily related to the tactical business plan, but jumping ahead to an item that's coming up tomorrow. The the draft plan that we're going to put forward on the website to the public. I thought it was very clear and concise, and obviously it relates directly to these strategic priorities. So I agree with Jeremy. I was quite impressed to see the level of detail and various job actions.
I got one comment, sorry. In the top right-hand corner, it says 2019 to 2022
Oh.
tactical business plan. I just wanted,
Thank
it's
you.
2025 or whatever.
We'll have it done early.
You guys have a very short time frame to get all this done. This will be a public document, like this will be shareable with residents and all that kind of stuff. That's awesome. Thank you.
Councilor Coulson?
Yeah, I was really impressed with the fact that a lot of the things that we talked about were included in here, and now to see where you're going to need resources, where you're not going to, where you're going to do it internally and stuff like that. To me, that's really important because we can prepare for that. So no, I'm pretty impressed with the way this was done.
We have administration blushing here at the rate we're going.
And I want to make it very clear to council, this is the work of the team putting together. It was not an individual, it was their team coming and doing that. So if your name isn't on it, then no, she was, Joan was part of it, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I have another question.
Go ahead.
And just to follow up on this, after you guys going through this, the procedure of creating this and creating the Gantt chart, which can be a very useful tool, did you discover any gaps in basically workloading that you do when you set goals like this based upon a month-to-month goal setting? Like, has it created any efficiencies or inefficiencies that you guys are seeing in your planning moving forward?
I think to Councillor Williams' comment in our question is that the Gantt chart will actually identify the workload and again, some of these timelines may have to be adjusted. Oh, I don't have one for some reason. Never left. And as you go through them at the beginning, and down to organizational excellence, the first from May till September, there's a huge amount of work that may have to be moved off until the 24th. And once we get into that, and once we do our monthly review of this, I shouldn't say monthly, we usually do quarterly reviews on it, so we may have to adjust. But again, all of it, this is a working document, and we will move it and show it to council, letting them know that we've adjusted if required.
Just in the interest of clarity, because we always talk about public documents, clarity and things like that, do you want to expand on the Gantt chart, since we use that term a lot, but it's an acronym? Or anyone who can remember the acronym?
Yeah, I was just wondering if, no, can't even, do you know it?
I could Google it.
Putting me on the spot. I just used it for years. That's.
Well, and this is,
Can't. Timelines is the end.
I don't know what it stands for.
Goal.
That's what this is, right?
You've got me.
again, I just ask it for clarity. What's that? Oh, did Councillor Cush? You might have forgot about. I see your hand is up, Councillor Cush, so.
Gonna unmute himself.
Sorry, must just be internet late. My end shows the hand down.
Oh, forgot to put his hand down. Okay, that's what I got. All right. Does anyone, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm just prepared to make a motion to accept the draft, recommend. So I'll go forward with that. The council accept the draft 2022 to 2025 business plan and direct administration to place the business plan with amendments on the May 11th, 2022 council meeting for consideration.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion on the recommended actions? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. And,
This is way nicer than that.
I don't think there is an acronym for again.
Yeah.
it seems to be showing up a lot of
It's a
stuff, but
deal.
it's not.
Unofficial action against time.
But what I like here is
So
the fact that
it's something really close
there's
to
a
that.
lot of these little things that were included.
Yeah, it brings us to our next meeting date, item 4.1. We usually do these monthly. Do we have anything for the next one yet?
Yeah, we do. I'm trying to remember where it is. I'll have to look, sorry.
So what do we want to do, 31st May?
May 31st.
I'm spitballing at this point, just throwing dates out.
I mean, I'm almost certain we'll be here
I got it in my calendar.
No, but I do know that I have,
Just check my work schedule.
I'll check here.
I'm working that day, but if it's in the evening.
I'll be working, but where I'm gonna be working is probably, doesn't have Wi-Fi.
Gotta get there with something with wings.
Just fly fishing. Yeah, I've got the
Second to the second.
Thursday, the 26th, I've got open.
No holidays, 22nd to the second.
That entire week is fine for me so far.
My only consideration is I'm coaching football from 4 to 6, so if it's the evening, any of those days.
So you're saying past 6?
Yeah, like 6:30 or 7.
Yeah. I'm off that week, so it don't matter to me.
Which week, the 23rd or the 27th?
Yeah, 24th to 27th, yeah.
Okay.
So the 26th works if it works for everybody else.
And Councilor Kuchen, are you here, 26th?
I'll be gone from the 22nd to the 2nd probably,
Oh,
so.
okay, well.
Is there Wi-Fi there? Or are you probably too busy on nights?
I won't be up at the lodge.
Oh, you're going, yeah, yeah.
Are you back on the second?
Yeah, I'm back, I think I'm back on the 2nd of June, yeah.
The week before I'm on, but if it's in the evening, 7 o'clock, I can make it too, so I don't know if that
Yeah,
works.
the week before,
I guess it's only like 3 weeks away though.
yeah.
We don't have any on it.
So you're saying June 2nd?
Yep.
June 2nd work for everybody?
I'm good that whole week.
June 2nd works.
Okay, you still need the evening or what?
No, I think we're done then.
Okay,
If we can keep the evening would be good, cause I'm working all
Oh,
day. If like,
evening is in 5:30 or 5 or
it would be tight for me, but I could probably do it.
5:30?
Yeah, if 6 would be better, but
Let's do 6.
if we can do 6.
These are going by pretty quick.
2nd is good for
If
me.
we're as efficient as we are tonight, we'll be in good shape.
Okay. Oh,
So-
we'll be as efficient because it's on the Gantt chart. As soon as we,
We'll have a definition then too.
so,
June 2nd.
okay, so June, oh, my phone went down here. June the 2nd at 6 PM. Does that work for administration?
You want to do 6 PM now?
Just for Devin, he has to work that day.
If it's a pain, we can do the same time, 5:30. I can.
No, I would just either 6:30 or 6. So do you want lunch, supper? The only reason I say that, we work till 4:30 and then staff would go home, have lunch, or you bring lunch in, or supper. For those that are in Australia, it's lunch and dinner, sorry, you bring dinner in.
Can I make a
Councilor Kush
suggestion?
says he
Go
works
ahead.
till 7 that night.
Works till 7 that night.
Oh,
Who's that?
Councilor Kush.
gosh.
Oh, he's texting. Okay, sorry, Councilor Kush, I keep forgetting online.
We could. Can we make it at 7? Does that work?
It's
Or is that too late?
And then get people to go home and have supper and stuff.
Gives people time?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't mind.
7's fine by me.
That would.
A roll council meeting just beside.
Right. Till 2.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so does that work for you, Councilor Kush, 7 PM?
7:15?
15 minutes.
7 or 7?
7:15 would probably be a little bit better. When you started at 7, I can try to get out of my other job a little bit earlier to get there. But my shift.
Okay, May 2nd, 7:15, correct? Everybody's good with that? Somebody want to make a motion?
Mason.
June 2nd.
Oh, sorry,
June 2nd.
June 2nd, yep.
Yes, May 2nd is next week.
7:15 is what we said, correct?
Yep,
Good catch.
I'll make a motion that the P&P committee schedule the next meeting on June 2nd at 7:15 PM in the municipal office in Whitecourt.
any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. You have a foot?
Yeah, just a comment for council meeting tomorrow. We've updated your agenda. There was an item missed. It was approved and everything, and no fault of anybody's. It got caught in our system, spinning somewhere. And anyways, we found it, and if council has an opportunity to review it, it's the abatement on the Blue Ridge
Right.
School. Yeah, Briar
Okay.
Patch, thank you.
Okay,
So,
all right. Motion to adjourn? Counselor Williams,
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
on the floor. All in favor? Any opposed?